So August of 2019, Chris and I went to a friend's wedding in Atlanta. And it was a weekend away from the kids, and we were just kind of excited to go and spend time with friends. So we get up there, and we had a good time, and we were walking back to our room, and I twisted my ankle and fell.
We sit there together and just laughed for a minute, and I helped her up, and we went on back to the room and got up the next morning and started hurting her really bad when we were walking out to the car where she couldn't hardly walk out.
So we decided that we would go ahead and go to prompt care and get it looked at in case I had a small fracture or something.
And the doctors took the x-rays and worked her up and everything, just called it a sprained ankle.
Just throughout the night, my pain just started to skyrocket. Finally, I woke Chris up the next day. I said, I think we might need to go get a second opinion. So we went to a sports medicine clinic that time. They sent me to the ER from there to go get checked out. I've had 2 kids, so I kind of have a high pain tolerance, but this was the worst pain I've ever been in my life. So they said, you'll go back to surgery to have a fasciotomy, which is where they made a slit in my leg to kind of relieve the pressure and the swelling. So I knew I was gonna go back for that, and I was ready because I was just ready to be out of this pain.
She was back there for about 2 hours. So I worked all night. I found a little waiting room and took a little 2-hour nap. And the doctors came and got me when they were finished with that procedure. And they explained to me, I'll never forget, it's probably the worst feeling in my life, being in the medical field. And they said the words necrotizing fasciitis. And my heart just fell to the ground because I know how serious that bacteria is. I'll just never forget telling them just to do whatever they needed to save her life. They said it was nothing like they'd ever seen before. It was moving so fast up, they could visually see it running up her leg. And they were praying that they had gotten it high enough.
So when I woke up, I was still on the ventilator, and I just kind of knew I didn't have a leg. I was still here, and I was still glad to be alive, and I just had the peace of God come over me. Chris did come up, and he told me what happened, and that they had to amputate my leg. And I said, I know, and it's gonna be okay.
And I'll never forget, right after she did that, she's like, I didn't need to be wearing no high heels anyways. From that point on, she just kept her head up from there, and I just felt God's peace. Once the room cleared and all, the first thing we did was turn on kind of our anthem song that we had found that year, was I Raise a Hallelujah. It talks about praising God through the storms and through the trials, and that's just continued to be our anthem.
So I was just really kind of scared and nervous about, one, how my kids would see me, and 2, how I was going to be able to take care of them, physically. Just being able to chase after my kids and take them to the park and push them on the swing.
That's kind of the first things that would go through my mind, was we're not going to be able to walk on the beach together. I was just scared about how is Casey going to get back home, and how am I going to go to work, and how is she going to take care of our kids?
And my little girl, Anna, she was only 9 months old when it happened, so she didn't know. But Luke, he was 4, and he kind of knew what was going on. He knew Mommy wasn't home, and so they came up to the hospital one day, and we were going to tell him, what happened, and I was just shaking. I was so nervous about how I was going to tell him, and I was in a wheelchair, and I had a blanket over my leg, and before I could say anything, Luke just came up and said, oh, why did the doctor have to cut your leg off? And he just started jumping around on one leg, and it was just funny. And he said, so your leg went to heaven. And it was just really cool because it just showed how resilient kids are, and it just kind of gave me extra peace about everything, that it was going to be okay.
Just God provided in so many different ways. We had people do the meal train for us, and we had enough food for months. We actually had so much food that somebody donated a freezer to us so we could keep it in and not let the food go bad.
And I just saw God work miracles, in my life. Just with everything from the doctors and nurses to going to rehab, learning how to walk again, getting a prosthetic, getting insurance to cover a prosthetic. It just all seemed to just kind of fall in place after that.
I know one of her goals was to beat our girl walking. So she set that as a goal, and I'll never forget, I think it was 3 days before Anna started walking, Casey got her prosthetic, her test prosthetic, and took her first steps and was walking in it and got to come home with it like 3 days before her girl.
I guess I just, when I was learning to drive and learning to walk, I guess I just kind of always thought everything would just kind of be a piece of cake and I would just be able to up and do it. But I'm not as young and flexible as I used to be. So I've learned that, some things have been a little, I guess, more challenging than others. Through all this, I definitely still have good days and bad days. It's not all peachy, definitely not. But, a bad day is just my prosthetic doesn't fit right, or it's rubbing in all the wrong places, and I just feel discouraged. I guess it's caused a lot of anxiety, and I still struggle with some depression and stuff from it, and just having flashbacks a lot of times. I have some PTSD that from it all that I'm working through. And so there's days where I don't feel like putting my leg on, that I feel like throwing it across the room. There was one time where I took Anna to school, or I picked her up, and instead of coming to the car, she walked around and she stopped and she looked at me, and then she just started running that way. And she ran through this field, and then the road was on the other side. And I just I can't run in this, regular leg. And so I was just walking fast after her and yelling her name. And the more I yelled, the faster she ran. And I passed this one van with somebody inside, and I was trying to motion for them to come help. And they just waved back, So Anna at this point is running. And she's a good, 50 yards. All I could see was the road, and she was going to it. And finally the woman gets out of her car. She's like, "Do you need help?" And I was like, "Yes, I can't catch my kid." And so she takes off running, and she catches her right before she gets to the road. And just there's been times like that where I'm just really? What is the point of not having a leg?
Whatever she puts her mind to, she does. We go on bike rides now with our kids. She's learning how to run. We go to the beach. We go to the water park. And it's just unbelievable to me that she's able to do this and do it with a smile on her face.
God continues to show me how strong He is and how big He is. And I know that's kind of children talk, kind of, God is so big, God is so strong. But it's true because, just seeing God work so much, and I just know that He cares about every single detail of your life.
So God has just moved through this whole situation that looks like a tragedy, but it has really uplifted us as a couple in our marriage. We've definitely grown stronger, pray a lot more together now, most definitely.
I just, I still feel there was another in the fire that day, that I wasn't the only one fighting for my life. There was one time in the ICU that I was a little OCD. I was I gotta have my chapstick and my ice chips and my Powerade. And I didn't realize that I was hooked up to all this other stuff, I just thought that if I had my chapstick and my ice chips and my Powerade, that's what was keeping me alive, that I was fighting this battle. And then one day, I don't know how many days it was, but I looked back and there was just this wall of machines and all these cords, and that's what was keeping me alive, And I just remember being oh, Like, you know, and kind of like in a sense, that's kind of how God is, you know, like you're down here with your little ice chips and you're thinking that you're in control of everything when really he's behind you and he's got this.